Welcome to another episode of A Tonic for Lunacy. My name is Donna, and I'm your host. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can check it out on Spotify or Apple. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple, you can check it out on YouTube too. I can promise you that my hair will hardly ever be done, and I will hardly ever be wearing any makeup. Although I do have some concealer and mascara today, so you're welcome. Also, only one hand is painted. It's fine. All right, what we're talking about today is a little bit of what it looks like after you start the deconditioning program. So, the deconditioning program, it's not an actual program that I run, you guys. But I just mean once you start deconditioning with human design, although I do have programs that will help, like Shadow Stripper School. I think that we expect, there was a really great quote by a woman who did a TED talk on trauma. And I always forget her name, but I will find it here. And her thing was that when we say that we want to be healed, what we're really saying is that we want to go back to that person we were before we were traumatized. And that hardly ever happens. That never happens. Let's just say it like that. That literally will never happen. But what we can do is we can be that person that we are meant to be. That sounds very vague. So, what I'm thinking about when I'm saying that is the design aspects of our human design chart. We can embody those, which is our who we really are, right? Our unconscious, our body, our genetics, the vehicle. We can start to embody those more as when we begin to heal our shadows, when we begin to heal our traumas and integrate our shadows. And I think that we all think that the process is going to look very shiny. And when we're done, we're going to be brand new. And we're going to be that person we were before we were traumatized or conditioned. And it doesn't look like that. At least that's not my experience of it. I know that it 100% looks different for every person, but it really is messy. Like it's a messy process. And what I tell people when they start working with me and when we start doing shadow work is that your life's about to get a little messier. Because once you start to knock on the subconscious door and release some of the things that have been in there, assuming that your body feels safe enough to do that, which is why we always do the emotional work before the nervous system regulation, because then you are likely to release more from the subconscious mind, making the unconscious conscious, right? That's what we want to do, recognizing what's really in there. So as soon as we start doing that, things start to really show up in our reality, in our life. Like all of a sudden, we're noticing all the people, places, and things that are out of alignment. And sometimes it gets worse before it gets better because we're noticing it more, right? We have a different level of awareness and an ability to heal it. So, what I wanted to say about like the after the deconditioning, or I don't know that it ever really ends, when you start to cross that midway mark, when you start to cross that midway of being deeply conditioned to a little less conditioned and a little more yourself, I've noticed that I've become more sensitive to misalignment. I've become more sensitive to bullshit in terms of like, I see you, I hear you, and I'm not playing this game with you. Let me give you a funny example. And I'm not just the way that this has happened. So I've been playing around with some rebranding and just like different fonts. And as a line 3, I play with it, I put it out there, and then I see how I feel about it. That's it. I experiment, right? Pure line 3. So I downloaded a new font. A lot of you know I used to be like obsessed with the 90s, like 90s design and aesthetic and fonts and things like that, especially when I had Undefined the magazine, or when I did a lot of design work for some astrologers. I did a lot of 90s stuff. Anyway, I played around with some fonts on my Instagram. And in the middle of the night, well, I guess it was the middle of the night for me. I got a message asking me about my branding. She said something like, "Oh, I see that you're using new fonts and your new identity, brand identity. Is this like for good? Is this like what you're doing now?" And I was like, "Huh?" Um, I was like, "No, like I'm just trying it on for size, but like, thanks for noticing." And then she basically said that she uses the same fonts and she's been using the same fonts, and clearly she needs an upgrade now that I'm using it. And I was like, okay, thank you so much for sharing that. She's like, I love this person, the person that created the font. I was like, honestly, I don't know who she is. Like, I just came across it on Creative Market and I liked it. It was 90s and I love all things 90s. So I was like, yes. And I played around with it and started using it. But I was like, why? Like, why the need to reach out to someone and be like, because now you're using this, I need an upgrade. Clearly, I need an identity upgrade. So, what it got me thinking is, well, one, ew. Two, like, I see your energy and I don't like it. So, no, thank you. But also, if this had been a few years ago, I would have been like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Let me take all of this down and let me change it all for you, right? Because this made you uncomfortable. Classic undefined solar plexus, not wanting to trigger the defined solar plexus, not wanting to trigger the somebody else's emotional waves. So I could see where I was and where I am now and how the effect of something like this had on me, or the lack thereof, right? I was just like, I don't care, whatever. um Also, those aren't the things that are important, I think, right? Like, for me, for my design, that is purely about transmitting the message, changing the direction that we're going in, creating new rules for the collective. Fonts are not what I'm worried about, right? It's the message. What is the message? But what this showed me is, one, how important it is to stay in your own fucking lane and not worry about triggering other people with fonts or anything else, right? And two, what is the message? What is the message that we are sharing, and are we sharing it with everyone in every way that we can? So, a few other things so what this really made me think about is, what's my process, right? Like, what's the way that I'm doing things, and are they working for me? Or am I still in some places in my life holding on to things because I don't want to trigger people's emotional waves? So I made a little list, a little assessment of things that work and things that don't work. And I think this is huge when you're working through that deconditioning process, because you get to that place when you're on the other side of that line in the sand where you're like, wait a minute, these things don't work for me, but they used to work, right? I thought they did. Maybe they never worked for me, but I just wasn't aware because I was so caught up in the conditioning of it. So let me give you an example. A lot of you know that I've been on this like health kick, because apparently I have high blood sugar and cholesterol and all the things. It's fine. So I started working with a functional doctor, holistic doctor, and she's amazing. And we played around with a lot of different things. And what it was an experimentation process. So things that I had to reassess: alcohol, I'm still reassessing that one, by the way. I'm still testing that one out, experimenting. um, Not eating out, high intensity interval training, grains, carbs, sleep, intermittent fasting, water, protein. And when I look online and when I'm like, how do I fix my high cholesterol? How do I fix this? How do I fix that? When I watch different things, when I listen to different people, instead of just using strategy and authority or just coming back into my body and asking my body what it needs, I am thrown way off. And after I've done a lot of this deconditioning, my body responds big time. So one of those things was high intensity interval training. But wait a minute, my root connects to my spleen. I have the 2838. High intensity interval training, according to Ra, is what I need. But it wasn't working for me. It really wasn't working for me. Like, it was timing. It was the combination of intermittent fasting. It was the combination of not eating carbs or grains. It was a lot of these things that when I put them together, I was exhausted and my entire body was just done. So what happened was I did this for a long time and it really fucked with my mind and my body. The intermittent fasting, the high intensity interval training, and not eating carbs or grains, and not fueling properly, not eating enough protein, because meat's not good for you, right? So it turns out that the body graph is not black and white, right? Like, it's not this or that. We get to experiment. We get to play with it, especially if you're a line 3, right? Like, play with it. So the high intensity interval training works for me, but not every day and not in the morning. And I need to incorporate other forms of exercise, and still not every day. And still it depends on my cycle. So it's not cut and dry. Neither is the body graph, right? And we talked last week when we talked about depression about the foods that we eat and how our body graph can help show us what we need to eat. But still, it's not cut and dry. Like, when people are so obsessed with human design and the mechanics of it, and they're like, I don't want to hear your interpretation. I want to know the source materials. Like, that's good and great, but adapt, right? Like, let's explore these things further. Like, I'm in direct light. Does that mean that I can't eat during the day? Because that's what technically indirect light means. But that's not true or real for me. So we still need to experiment with this. Even Ross said this. We are always our own authority. We are always our own authority. So yes, listen to strategy and authority, but also, what is your body telling you? And I've noticed that as I've deconditioned, my body tells me more and more and more and more and more. I listen more. It still takes me time because fuck that line 3, right? Like, I have to make the same mistake 300 times to be like, okay, I'm done. But even still, I'm an extremist. I don't know why we're talking so much about me today, but here we are. I'm an extremist, okay? When I start a diet, when I start anything, when I fall in love, it's hard and it's fast because I'm an extremist. So something that I'm working on now that I'm doing a lot of this deconditioning work and I can see things, the word balance has come into my life a gajillion times over the past few months. So I'm trying to find that balance between routine and extremism, the 5 and the 15. I don't have the 15, I have the 5. Patience and going for it, right? Being in the now and planning for the future. Pain and pleasure. Eating the entire gallon of ice cream or having just one spoon, or we'll say 1 cup, right? It's about the balance. Not, I've noticed that the extremism doesn't work for me, and my body graph will also tell you that, because I don't have the 15. Like, my body doesn't respond well to that, but yet it's such a deep mind fuck conditioning, a lot of times also an addiction, right? Like the addiction to sugar, to alcohol, to whatever your drug of choice is. Netflix and chilling. Okay, where was I going with this? I think that the part that people kind of forget to do when they're deconditioning, because they expect everything to just like fall into place, which sometimes it does, and that's great, is the reassessment. It's the period of reassessment where we can look back in the past few months or even the past few years and look at it, what worked and what no longer works, right? So I made this list here of like alcohol doesn't work. Eating out doesn't work well. High intensity interval training, no. Grains, no. Sleep, yes. Alternating exercise days based on my cycle, yes. Intermittent fasting, yes. Extra water, yes. Animal protein, yes. Like those are things that my body has shown me actually work. My business, those fonts, I don't know. I don't know that I like them. My last launch, what happened there? What happened in my last launch? It didn't go the way that I wanted it to go. It wasn't as easy as I wanted it to be. And I recognized that it was my energy. I was experimenting with the diet and exercise thing. So that was a disaster. My mental health was not great because it's winter. And we learned from the last episode that I don't do well in winter. I did things in the launch because that's the way you do them. And here's the climax of this episode, if you will. Being highly individual, or even just someone who's doing this work right now in this time in our world, we are meant to do things our own way. So, like all the classes that teach you how business should go, how you should run your business, how you should do your launches, how you should do your emails, this, that, and the other thing, don't always work because our energy is like, nope, I need to do things my way. This will not work. And the more that you decondition, the more you will recognize the things that you've tried, that you followed, don't work. I've spent so much money on these things. Oh my God. And I've been really disappointed, especially recently. My big investments that I made this year were disappointing. What I expected to get from it, I didn't, but it's tough, right? Like we have these expectations for programs or courses or coaches, but really it's like, well, what am I putting into it? And I think I follow strategy and authority and soul. So there are definitely good things that have come from it and reasons for it. But my human self is like, I didn't get what I paid for. Right. So I'm trying to look at it from the perspective of this is not how I want to run my programs. If this is what it's like to be making $1 million a year, $5 million a year, I don't know that I want it because this feels out of integrity for me. This feels really out of integrity. So I'm learning how I want to run my programs and also how to run my programs so that I can help people figure out how to do life and business their own way through their design. And I can't put the blame on anybody but myself here because I'm probably not putting enough into it either. But I will say that I am feeling like big programs with lots of people are not the thing. They're not the thing. Like it's like that an individualized attention that we're all craving. Like my human design shadow training, like that's capped at 6 people this time so that I can give that individual attention. The shadow stripper school, we have a Facebook group dedicated to answering individual questions so that we can give you that specialized attention. And I think that's really important. So I'm thinking that for me, one-on-one is powerful. Other things that I've noticed, actually, let me share if you're on YouTube. I'm going to share this. Oops. if you are on the podcast, you can actually go to my Instagram because I shared this on my Instagram as well in a post on April 18th. Okay, this is what I'm getting at. Our design can show us where we need to just surrender to who we really are. This is who I am. And the more that I try to make myself fit into anything else, the more fucked up it all gets. The more that I recognize it in my body, especially now after all the deconditioning work. I create my own rules in life for business. So what does that mean? That means that I might wake up that day and be like, I'm not posting on Instagram today because there's nothing I want to share. I don't want to be seen. I'm in direct light. I don't want to be seen today. And it gets to be okay. When we're following strategy and authority, when we've set up our business and life to support our energy, right? When I've set up the passive income, so I don't need to show up. I don't need to show up. I move through life authentically with my Jupiter, with my gate 10 and Jupiter. I find a unique direction through life. My life's not going to look like everybody else's. It just won't. And the more that I try to make it look that way, the more time and energy that I spend trying to make it look a certain way, the worse off I am. But if I try to spend that time and energy tuning into my body, into strategy and authority, into soul, and figuring out what's this new way, and having the courage to actually do it, that's where the power lies. So for you too, likely you've had things go through your mind of, this doesn't work. You know, that Pilates class doesn't work. Everybody's telling me Pilates is great, but you know what? This doesn't work for me. What's a new way? What's a different way for me? Letting it all just make sense naturally, instead of trying to force it. I am here now and I don't need to future trip or plan out every detail in my life. That's the balance of gate 20. The balance of gate 20 in my North Node is what it used to be was me running busy, the 2034, right? Like a chicken with my head cut off. Like I'm so busy doing all the things. Don't talk to me. I'm stressed and I'm busy, to slowing it way down, slowing it way down and being very intentional in the now. So it's just a different perspective, a different flip of the coin of gate 20, right? That's what I mean when I say that the body graph is not black and white. I am here now and it gets to be slow and intentional. And if I lose 5 minutes because I took the time to make my bed, because that felt good in the moment, then I lost the 5 minutes and I'm okay with that. And then my gate 7 in my unconscious sun, the rejection of the institution, changing the rules of the game for all of us, is the anarchist in line 3. The things that work for other people don't work for me. Marriage, not for me, right? Lots of things, not for me. Working in an office, tried it, nope, not for me. I need to be working at home. I need to be able to move to the different rhythms of me, the beat of my own drum, right? Also, I have the full channel 4426. Ross said, looking at the design, what you're actually seeing is the hardwired attributes of differentiation that the holistic mind has no access to. So it's you, it's hardwired. It's not like the openness that that influences the way in which you think, the way in which you make decisions. In fact, this is the hardwiring. And if you tune into it in that sense, what we do through strategy and authority, that is, you have the ability to operate correctly out of your vehicle self. This is who we are. How much time and effort do I spend buying books and programs and coaches to teach me how to do things, instead of spending money on books, coaches, and courses and programs to teach me how to help me understand my energy, how to do things my way? So here, this is from Instagram, obviously. It was just a little prompt about what are you giving yourself permission to fall into, right? What is the deconditioning program showing you that you are no longer available for? And why are you holding on to it so tightly, right? This is a lot of the work, the shadow integration, the deconditioning work that we do in Shadow Stripper School. If you don't know about Shadow Stripper School, I'll drop a link. It's thebomb.com. It's essentially a gym membership, right? You pay monthly. Every month I drop a masterclass, workbooks, bonuses, and then we have a Q&A. There's a Facebook group. It's all about shadow, trauma, and human design, relationships, rest, life, our cycles. But it's all my work is trauma, shadow, and human design. So it's all integrated in there. And it's powerful. It really is. Okay. That was a little bit of a ranty episode, but I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about how when you start to decondition, how that really changes your body and how that really changes what you're available for and the energy that you put, the energy that you allow into your life is going to change things in a bigger way, right? You're going to see it. You're going to see it. So it doesn't always look like rainbows and butterflies in the beginning. There's always little shifts that need to be made. They don't have to be big shifts. They can be, the micro shifts, the 1 degree shifts that change everything, like a change in perspective, a change in the way that we see things. But allow yourself to reassess if you've done a lot of the deconditioning work. Allow yourself some time to actually sit down and reassess what has actually worked, what didn't. What is working right now and what isn't? And what am I going to do about it? And if you're a line 3, maybe it's I'm going to keep knocking up against this wall. And that's fine too. All right. Thank you guys for being here. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.